Hello, and welcome to the Kreachur Feature podcast, where I find random people on the internet and ask them questions. Today I have Modnaryug, who is an artist I've actually followed for a few years now. How are you doing today, Modnar?
Doing fine.
Awesome. Are you ready to start the questions?
We can go.
Sweet. Alright, so normally we'd ask questions about VR chat, but Modnar here doesn't play much VR chat, so I actually changed the first 5 questions to be about art and stuff instead. So, question 1, how long have you been posting your art for?
As far as I can remember, I think the very first 2D animation was in early 2018. So at first, why I did posted this animation, I started first doing a few attempts at 3D animation that are no longer available anywhere. Very different from what I was doing. Then I did find myself very restricted on that, so I started writing down stuff. And then I got back to animating stuff, but in 2D this time. Why in 2D? Because I wanted to do stuff I had more control. Basically in 3D I was using model that I found online, and obviously I was frustrated of not having like my own character and all my own background and stuff like that. I choose to animate in pixel art because to me, skeleton-based animation, 2D skeleton-based animation and pixel art was stuff that you could do without any knowledge. It's not exactly true, I learned that over time, but to me pixel art is that kind of art when if you're bad at it, you can just continue, like you don't have like in drawing to look at the drawing you do at first, you know, like the ugly drawing you are forced to start on. Pixel art, you can start, and if you put the time in it, you will eventually, even your very first one, because you can modify it and modify it again, it's never over, you can eventually get something that looks decent to yourself. It's just that it's going to take a very long time at first. So I did that. It took a very long time. At first I had a model that I did posted in late 2017 with the story at first, and then an adaptation of this story in like multiple months later in early 2018. Took a very long time because, as I said, very first animation, and also I did a big mistake of beginning on a very lengthy project, meaning a multiple minute long animation. So I had burnout phases, restarting, continuing, which is something very hard for me. But eventually, after multiple months of working on that, I did release it and got a lot of popularity rather fast. So for those who don't know, this animation had like a not safe for work aspect to it. At first I posted it on YouTube until YouTube became a few years later more restrictive and had better control method on that. And eventually kicked me out of the platform because of that.
I think I saw
By
one
that
of your
time I had
videos on YouTube first, is where I first saw it, I think.
Yeah. But at that time, thankfully, I had a decent enough Twitter account and DA account and Graffiti account, etc., etc. I did re-upload everything on Newground. But yeah, that was rough. So I did start it like that, and just after posting my very first animation, I had someone that was already ready to commission me another animation of the same size. That's how it all started. Like to give, just imagine that I was making multiple minute long 2D animation with multiple character, stuff like that. I did post it after months of work, something like that, I think. And the guy was like, okay, and how much do I owe you? I don't know, maybe $20?
Jesus. No!
If you were there back in the day, you could have multiple animation, like multiple minute animation from me for $20.
Jesus Christ,
the guy
bro!
Gave me 100. The guy gave me 100, being like, I cannot pay you less than that for what you made.
You're lucky he was a nice guy. You just no.
Yeah, I mean that's more importantly, the guy who commissioned me was someone I was following before. Like you know that kind of guy that has way too much money to sink into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But making that, he was quite popular just for the world he made, just by commissioning other artists and stuff like that. It's like very first video I released, with the perfectionist aspect of like, even if it's the first one, I want to put months and months of trying, forcing myself with new software and stuff like that. But it pays out so much well. I mean, with immediately someone commissioning me and preventing me from devaluating my own art and being someone I already respected even before starting.
I actually manage an artist right now, and for the past like 4 years, I've been trying to like convince him that his art is worth more than what he's selling it for, over and over. And I have to pull teeth to make him believe that. So we went from full renders at $30 originally, all the way to like now it's like about $100 for a full render. He can still go higher. His art is that good. But yeah, no, I noticed that as a problem within the artist communities. A lot of artists are kind of self-deprecative. They kind of don't think that they're worth the money they earn.
Yeah, I was helped a lot at the beginning on that.
Next question. How would you describe your art style?
It's a bit contradictory with what you said before, but even if it wears off over time, I consider my art to be like crafty technique to get over the fact that I have no knowledge into making art and animation. Obviously, like even okay, it's the kind of stuff that I shouldn't say of myself, but I do realize over time that no, I have experience, I have knowledge and stuff in art. I feel very bad to say it about yourself. Yeah, basically, I have this very pragmatic view on my art, which is that I took 2D animation because I thought it was something that everybody can do without any knowledge. I did pixel art because that's an art that if you put time in it, you cannot fail in it. So you see, all my art is accumulation of steps that require no previous knowledge or no in theory talent. Over time, I did learn that it was not the case. So how would I describe my art? Very colorful, I would say. The kind of person, I mean, who not despise realism, but cares very little about that. I want stuff to be flashy. I want stuff to move in exaggerated way. I want the facial expression to go all out like that. Stuff like that. I'm someone who grew with a lot of shonen anime, stuff like that, and if I got into furry, maybe it has to do with something that, I very hard time to appreciate the realistic stuff. I don't have trouble reading regular human emotions, so I make cartoon stuff that are so exaggeratedly expressive that even on me that works.
Yeah, I heard I forgot which like famous animator it was, like an actual like cartoonist animator from like Pixar or something, said something like, you can't carry emotion well on a 2D platform, so you have to exaggerate emotions, and that's one of the foundational things for like animation is exaggeration, one of the pillars of animation, because of that factor.
True. Basically, like, you probably heard of the 12 principles of animation. I wouldn't be able to name all of them, but I know I'm applying them in some way. And in many ways, I would simplify them into saying that see everything as if everything was made out of elastic, stuff like that. Everything react with a delay, stuff like that. Do not move an arm like that. You'd move it like that and have the motion do like that. Basically, it's I don't know how to say that, but it's part of like anticipation, motion, and then you have the that's another issue. Being not English based, anytime I just want to say a word and just like I have it in French, my base language, and I don't have the name to continue in English.
It's exaggeration, stretch and squash, color, appeal, timing. No, I'm forgetting too.
Most of the time, in general, not just with those principles, but I tend to be that guy that never puts name on everything. I'm better at memorizing pattern, formula, but never like the name out of it. Basically, like on a totally other subject, very quick, I did add at some point a fixation passion on astrology. Astronomy, astrology, the scientific one, not the card reading one.
Astrology, yeah. Wait, no.
I'm able to explain to you how black hole work, how neutron star work, how like different kind of class of star, but I will be fully unable to name you any important constellation, any remarkable name or stuff like that. So I only like to focus on the principle and never like the name of them, who made them, stuff like that. I don't remember the name, basically, only how it worked.
When I was younger, I had a big fascination with space stuff, and I remember like in the bathroom of my dad's house was a book on like constellations and stars and stuff, and I just read that the whole time. So I can I know every constellation in the sky that was in that book.
To me, like it might be even the very first book I had to read. It was like a astronomy for children, basically, book like that. But so I started very young once again. But
yeah, me too. Who are some other artists that you would say you look up to?
That's a question that it evolves a lot over time. So it's hard the same way. I think it's also hard for many other people to like say what is your favorite game, where you love game, what is your favorite movie when you like movie.
Yeah.
You never had like truly one.
But I'm not asking for truly one. You can list as many as you want.
So, first one of them, and maybe one without who I wouldn't be there, is one called Grey of PTA. So, being in the same kind of, being the same kind of, not safe for work stuff as I do, even though a very light one, I would say. Like it take the aspect with a lot of humor, a lot of self-loathing aspect most of the time, but mostly what I liked with this person. So firstly, it because of following him, I realized that being at the time someone who, like many other today, are you finish school, you have no idea of what you want to do. You do years of doing nothing. You try the first formation to help you find a job, then another one, then you try a job, and then another one, and you feel like you know the thing, like this all doing that. On the side, I was looking online, stuff like that, and did found that one artist, Grey of PTA, out of many other, but what I liked about him was how the not safe for work aspect was objectively based of that, but he was using his medium to tell us a story, to have a character that could say much more stuff around that. And also, I just realized how much money you can make with that kind of stuff. So he did inspire me, like, not for just being a good artist, with a very like oldish, cartoony Disney specifically, like the old Disney way of animation, old Looney Tune way of animation, stuff like that. Very inspired like that. But yeah, mostly this idea of like you make a basis of not safe for work stuff, but you'd be like, okay, but pants are not safe for work. Character like having motivation, having stuff like that. Sometimes self-loathing humor about the not safe for work aspect, or it can bring up many other subjects. And that's how I was inspired enough to say, okay, let's give it a try myself, basically.
Nice.
And maybe I would have started without him, but without him I wouldn't have made it my main job. I would say I would never had the confidence something that you could have been, like, no, it's silly stuff on the internet, it cannot work and stuff like that. But then you see this guy that was doing that for at least a decade at this point and being stable over 10 years. So I was like, hey, maybe it can be me too.
You do art full time, right?
Yep.
Nice. Yeah. Any other artists?
Actually, there is one called Rakuga Kite,
Yeah. I
or
know
just
them.
Kite
Yeah,
most of the time.
They're the kimono one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Digimon one as well. So being at the time a very huge Digimon fan myself, furry always start with interest in different licenses that evolve into furry stuff. And Digimon was one of them for me.
Yeah, no, he's really cool. I like him a lot. His art's pretty wholesome.
Yeah, I did had. It's annoying because I think like art-wise we have very similar taste. I did try to talk with him many times. It's just like we're both unable to start a conversation and
He's a little hard shy.
to talk between each other.
Yeah, he's a little quiet.
Same. So I just see, hey, you're doing fine. But and you don't have nothing much to say, so it's awkward and just stuff like that. But that aside, I did art for him multiple times. He did for me a few times as well. But mainly what matters is mostly that I really love his work for. You remember I described like me being like absolutely not in realism, being extremely in exaggerate facial expression, proportion, and loving shonen aspect, action, stuff like that. Above that, Digimon, so it's the essence of his art. Like character have sharp eyes for very shonen-like expression. Everything is very bouncy, very energetic. The fluff is simple and adorable at the same time.
Yeah, no, he has
just
a pretty
love the way
style.
he draw fur and stuff like that. And my old avatar right now, at first was because like in my art, I most of the time take existing. I had a base model that was made from modification of a modification of a modification of another thing, and every new model I make. Almost all the time, I make it by taking a model I already have and modifying it again and again. At first, I made a model, like a gift for him, of one of his characters, the main one, Piston. I took this base to one day make one of my Sona with proportion and stuff like that very look like his heart. So that's obviously, because like my entire avatar base was made out of one of his characters. I definitely an artist that did a lot for me, I guess. Like it did matter a lot for me. That's the two main one. Like the first guy to put me in, and the second one that has the most influential art on what I do and what I like, basically. Yeah.
Nice. I know. That's awesome. What was the strangest experience you had with a customer?
I can't think of a few. Honestly, I think I had so very few bad experiences with customers. I did have that one time where I made an entire animation for someone was not very aligned on the taste of what we wanted about that and stuff like that. The animation overall was a bit lengthy, a bit annoying to do because of that and stuff. He gave me a character, told me that they had the right to use them and stuff like that, do the entire animation, post it, and get a message from someone else being, hey, why are you using my character for that? So I did explain myself that hey, this guy told me he had like your authorization to do that. And he came back after that being, okay, the guy was just, because I did not answer them, they took that as a yes. They took my non-respond as a yes. So I agree, okay, well, you see with them, if you want me to take down the animation, I can. It just ended up like that. Okay, maybe another one that was very not funny, definitely not funny, but important for me. After my first years of working on my own and stuff like that, having actually the years when I make the most money out of everything, I started like so it was 2023. I started the years with yet another big animation for another client. I was loving their avatar, and I was, for the one too many time, putting way too much effort in the animation. So it took first months, then a second one, until I had to admit that the animation progress was going slower and slower, that it was extremely painful for me to progress, and I had to go back to them and tell them that I was unable to go all the way through. And above that, realized that I was not making enough margin to have the money to pay them back. So at this point, normally, like, that's the moment where your career ends, because, like, whenever you pull something like that, like, I cannot finish your 3-digit prepaid animation, I cannot refund you, it's just something you do that, it's game over. And he did something that I think, like, from the customer perspective is very dumb, in that he was like, no, that's fine. No, it's not fine. It's definitely not fine. I had 3 months of burnout, and I then eventually, like, go back to my working environment. At some point I have a YCH, your character here, event that I was trying to solve that did not solve, so very bad recovery, stuff like that. And I came back to them and be like, hey, well, even if you say we are fine, I still owe you something, so do you want the stuff like that? And at this point I realized that the guy was... So I was coming to them with a free animation, stuff like that, and you could feel like the bitterness because they were... they wanted to not say no because free stuff, but at the same time being like, it's not exactly what I wanted. And at first, so I did got that without them saying anything, and I was like, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna rethink the thing from the start, so it made purposefully for you. We're gonna work something together to fully rework the ID and get something that truly fits you. And like that, I did eventually manage to make another animation that was, like, in terms of value, equivalent to the other one. So because I could definitely not restart the other one. Like, once the AD is burned in your head, it's way too hard to come back to it. So, but working something else that they were equally happy about, and finally finish the story with them and managed to get back on equal footing. And that's traumatized me enough to never had to do that ever again.
What is a bit of advice you give to aspiring artists?
Well, being a very saturated market, as you know, there's a lot of too much offer, not enough
customers.
So the way I did enter it, another thing I had in mind whenever I started that is that I would never be like better than... I will never be on the podium or the top 10 of artists even in my domain, stuff like that. So how did I had like some visibility and stuff like that? I did something unique. Unique because of aiming something very specific, very niche, being a very particular... not just when I say not safe for work, it's not general not safe for work, it's a very specific kind of stuff, so not
it's a niche market.
Necessarily into...
It's a niche
market. So first thing you can do is to have easier, like the easy mode of being an artist online, that will be like low risk, low reward equivalent. It's not fully low risk, of course, but low risk, low reward kind of stuff is fix yourself on a very niche market and obviously try to make something, if possible, that was not made before. Very hard to say, it's very hard to pull off, but that's the kind of stuff that gonna make you... It's more important to stand out than doing that. When you think about that, you can find, especially in journal and stuff like that, you will find many successful artists that have very basic drawing skill, very like beginner drawing skill, but still manage to get out. So it's truly not always... It's definitely like art quality equal popularity.
But like, I think that like it's not just about like genre or topic when it comes to that. Like being unique in art style is also a big thing. Like, I don't know another pixel art animator that does your style, to be honest. I think there's one person, but I don't really know. But
Other
like,
pixel art animation, because even pixel art animation is not something that truly defined me, because most of the time when you say pixel art animation, you say frame by frame with a full on the same grid pixel art stuff, when what I do is make a pixel art character, break it down into different parts, and move those parts with, bone and stuff like that. So it's so specific that there is not even truly a word for what I'm making. So it shows you how specific and unique it is, that you basically have no word for that. I'm alone in my market, so I don't suffer very
but like
not much. Sorry.
artists I
About
would
competition.
think of with a very unique style. There's Dimwit Dog. I don't know if you know who they are. They do this like triple line art thing where like they have like a highlight line art and they all have a color line art and the actual line art for their entire pieces or something like that. And it just makes everything kind of look like hazy and neon signy kind of, and looks really, really good in practice. Utsuki Maito has a way of drawing fur that's really cool. They like brush out like little tufts all over, and it looks really, really cool.
Yeah, hard time remembering the name, as that's issue with me.
I collect.
But definitely see what you mean. Yeah.
I have an archive of art for artists that I like, for all their art up to like early this year, that I'm still working on getting updated. And so like I love finding new artists and finding new art styles and stuff, and sharing them. That's a big one. It's time to move on to some more questions about real life things. Are you ready for that?
Okay.
All right. So, what do you do for work? We already kind of answered that, but how would you sum it up?
Haha. I managed to find myself a job that is very well suited for me. That, yeah, I'm happy like being always in my place. I'm someone that like to be outside of the norm. I did find myself a job that is fitting for me, who have like attention issue and work time issue, let's say. Very social as well. So normally with that you don't find any job, like you don't like working with people, you don't like working overall. But I found a job that allowed me to work an absurdly small amount of hours, choosing whenever I'm doing that. But it's yet not made for everyone, because it needs you to stay at home all the time, on your PC all the time. And I'm below minimum wage. I manage to survive, I can eat, no problem, I have a lot of backup, stuff like that, but it's a huge issue that not many people can live with. One of the, like before I was a full-time artist and stuff like that, I was working into an office when I was helping people, those okay, because like in France we have like the only one state-based system to help people to find job, basically.
Yeah, you were. What's it
and
called?
I was.
It's a job recruitment
Ours
center,
did
right?
change the name a lot. Imagine like state putting money into like having its own official system, so all the job offer are grouped up into the same register, and people that search job as well and paid with taxes and stuff like that. And I was the one helping old people and people that were bad with computer overall to manage the website, that because all of those stuff must be done on the website and stuff like that. So we had PC in the office to help people do that. And my job was to help them with the PC. So I did that at some point. It's just that the thing I was doing was only available. It's a kind of job where they only have interns. Basically, they never get someone to do that as a real job, despite this truly being a real job. So I couldn't stay into this one. But I mean, it was better because I'm way more happy with my current job. at least I had like a similar kind of job.
What is your favorite song?
I just mentioned with like whenever you are like artist, you cannot pick a favorite one.
Yeah. Okay, so
Favorite
name a
song.
few, name an artist, name an album. What comes to mind?
Even that is hard as heck. I think many people say that like they do not have a favorite song or a favorite stuff. It's just that for me it's changed so often. Obviously I like any music that came from, not all music, but many music that came from anime, some kind of metal music, but once again very dependent. Anything that is aimed to be epic and stuff like that most of the time.
Okay.
And specificity, I did have I have something for any music that comes from the initial D.
You like Eurobeat?
I like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was amazed by the way, like this anime alone can be its own musical genre when you see the amount of stuff that goes into that. And it's so funny when you realize that some of the guys that was making the song for that, which was just American singer from that had like their famous like half famous era between this stuff. After Eurobeat has been, some of them got into remaking Tuhu song. It just sounds so specific, but the guy just so passionate with being adapted by Japan and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah, Tuhu adaptation. Eurobeat.
Yeah, no, I love. You know, I hate to admit it. I started watching Initial D and then I stopped watching it. I don't remember why. I think I got kind of bored, but I do want to rewatch it.
I did the entire thing.
I think I
did the entire thing. It's not an anime that I would say. It's like Digimon. It's an anime that it has a lot of soul, let's say, but it does not change the fact that those anime are very lengthy.
Episodic.
It's just like you have to dig a lot of dirt to get to those gold in the middle. Very lengthy, and most of the time it's a matter of like the anime by itself is pretty mid. It's just that it inspires you, so in your head you do the better version. Initial D, it's a lot of repetition, a lot of some stuff looking around, but some scenes are so inspiring, and I like this general stuff of making something that is obviously goofy. Like at some point the guy just make a kind of drift when he allows the car to raise one wheel and go over the precipice or stuff like that. It's just so dumb, but what I like about that is that at no single point the anime make a joke about that. For them it's dead on serious.
Yeah.
That's a mood I want more in this era with Marvel and stuff like that, where they are trying to do something serious just for the moment later to be that, we are gonna joke about ourselves and make fun about ourselves. And just, nothing can be serious. Like you always have to be like, imagine being serious about that and doing that seriously. And just yes, imagine doing that seriously. Exactly. That's the thing. That was the main successful part of that Puss in Boot sequel. People like the death character and stuff like that, but mostly what transpired, and that was very lacking whenever this movie came out, and it's still kind of lacking today, is having character and antagonist that at no single point make a joke. Death character is unique because, opposite to any other children targeted movie at this point, never is related to any kind of joke. That's from the beginning to the end. The question was, what about music? So I would, sorry, just moving all the way back to it. Would say that if there is one thing that unify most of the time all the music I listen to is any kind of movie when you can have battle scene in your head whenever you are listening to it, like anime shonen fight into it without any kind of joke breaking stuff into that in the middle. And most of the time that's what I did.
What is your favorite meal?
I think one of the best plates I can think of are, I have a restaurant in my city. Well, first I live in France, so
You have
Sorry
many
to say that,
restaurants in
but
your city.
American food, French food, it's just
Okay, yeah, no,
sorry.
okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
but yeah. But we have that one guy making ramen in my city, and just it makes you realize that there is no kind of resemblance between the one that you can buy in a supermarket. I mean, it's fine for a fast food, let's say, and truly like traditionally make ramen with obviously a lot more ingredients, stuff like that, and especially like the once again, like in the world, the soup part of it, so the liquid
Broth.
into, because when you are taking like fast noodle buckets, stuff like that, you basically just pour water into that. Whenever you take this like true ramen, the soup in it tastes
broth.
like it. The broth, okay?
Yeah.
It tastes like the middle part of the egg. Like if it was fully made on yellow egg, the yellow part of the eggs made into it. So it's insanely like a lot of fat, very greasy, but
there's actually like
so much difference with.
It's like there was actually like stuff boiled in there, like actual ingredients like meat and dashi and other vegetables and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you no longer feel like it. You no longer can feel any kind of water into that, but that's the good stuff. Aside of that, I would say, how do you call that? You know, that kind of shark that is very flat in English.
Shark that's flat.
You know, the
stingray.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay.
This one went to that's a meal that normally we make in family once a year for Christmas most of the time.
I didn't know you could eat
them. So this one fish, their side part basically, you can do that in salted butter that you call black butter for because you cook it until it's become brownish.
Yeah.
Okay, well in France it's black, but okay. Well for that. No.
I'm the ignorant one. I'm the American.
We do that. Also, like I live in a region when we have so butter is something you can find many ways, even in America, stuff like that. But the particularity of my region, so I live in France, and specifically in the very west side of France, that we call Britain, that has its own cooking stuff, like crêpes that come from this place, and salted butter. A lot of history behind that, being because back in the day, salt was something we are not paying any tax on. Only our part of France was not paying tax on that, so it stayed, and we have the best butter of France because of that. Because simply put salt into them, and then you can put butter into many things, and it just become main ingredient. We have actually a cake that is made of. I forgot the proportion, but the joke is that you have 90% of butter into the cake.
That's like, so I've had French food before because I've been on vacation and stuff,
if you want.
And like the one thing that I took away from it is that it's just so much fucking butter, man. Everything was drowned in butter, had a lot of butter in it.
We just had way too much of it.
Normally
you have this in France where every single region have their own cheese, except for Britain. From Britain, which is very weird because it's very farm-based stuff. But there is a simple reason to that. We did not make any cheese here, exactly, because all the expiring milk was put into butter, so no cheese.
I've heard something where like the best butter in the world comes from a region of France because the grass has a lot more nitrogen in it or something, and so the cow's butter is like has this unique taste to it. Is that your area? Is that what they're talking about?
Okay, so I never heard anything about that. We do have a lot of cow in our region. Either it's that, it's either Normandy. Well, that one normally American do know.
Normandy butter, yeah.
Pronunciation, but it should be the same. And if it's not that, then it's gonna be a part like next to Switzerland. So in the southeast, I think. But honestly, I never heard about grass being better in this place. But if you talk about like a special part of France with its special butter, most of the time it's Britain, and it's because we put salt in the butter.
Yeah. All right. What is a random fun fact about yourself?
Very broad question, once again.
Very broad.
No, the other one was not that broad. Random fact about myself. Being someone that go out very little and talk very little, and just so much in my own house, taking very few risks. But maybe I'm like especially normal on that point, I would say. Not sure. I get passionate about many different kind of stuff. I love discovering something, like just in the science I left school. I never got so interested into stuff I left school. After that, I first learned finally to appreciate story, and more precisely the way you construct story. So we introduce characters, stuff like that, into astronomy, as we mentioned earlier. I suddenly, for no reason, got into car mechanics and stuff like that, learning a few models, the story of which country did which car for what. I got into plane as well, aerodynamic, engine, different method of how we did evolve, and all the way up to how modern radar work on planes, stuff like that. I had passion for submarine as well, boat, and especially sail, like the way you interact with doing wind sails, what kind of sails exist all the time. I can get passionate on, like, I have those phases when I get passionate on something very specific and I stick with that for a very long time. Also, you may realize that marine vehicle into that. Maybe because one of my dream all day would be to have a moving home somewhere. Like the best life for me would have been to be born, I don't know, 800 years in the future, and like, you know, living in a spaceship that you can move from place to place no matter what the reason was, and just being independent.
I feel like if you weren't an artist, you'd be an engineer. I feel like that's the route you'd go. I feel like you like learning about how things work mechanically and stuff like that, and that's why like you keep
I was like
stuff.
This kind of stuff would have been made for me. Well, I mean, the question was brought up for me at a point in my life. Did not go for that because engineers, most of the time, I don't see that as a place where you are free of thinking what you want. Like, you have deadline, you are working for someone, you need to respect stuff like that, you need to be good at school as well. And being very bad at retaining, at putting name on stuff, I like to, whenever I'm going into mathematics and stuff like that, I like to count by myself. I had to have my own method and stuff like that. I hate to make that one method because the teacher told you to do that, and remember who made it, and explain how it works, and put much time like putting words to like the word the teacher told you. And you see, I'm so much into doing stuff my own way that being an engineer is incompatible with me. Like, at some point you need to fit in some kind of cases and into the norm so everyone can understand each other. That's something bad at it.
What do you do to relax after a busy day?
I'm relaxing too much, honestly, with a video game, mainly.
Okay.
Oh boy. Once again, this is kind of stuff that I evolve a lot. Game I tend to come back to. I love any kind of vehicle simulation. That's also something I love to do in VR. VR is the ultimate tool to play any kind of stuff when you pilot something. A plane, a boat, submarine, whatsoever, a mech game as well, very underrated. I want to have a maximum amount of button around me with function and stuff like that. The number of button is important, very important, and VR is a tool that allows you to create virtual button ad vitam aeternum around you. Aside of that, did recently got back into a strategy game that I failed to learn properly back in the day with Warcraft 3 and 2 as well. I started on the 2, then the 3. Today it's Age of Empire 4 and Dawn of War, stuff like that. So that's why RTS game. Helldiver quite a lot.
Helldivers is fun.
I do not like game like. Not a big fan of any game where just shooting on creature, because I think most of the time it's too simple. Just having a gun and shooting on creature is not something I like. But Helldivers is so much more complex, gives you so much more strategic option and creative way you can go around objective that it goes from not caring to I need to do that. I was even playing with Helldivers 1 before, like the second one was not out. Years before, I was a massive fan of Helldivers 1. And recently I was playing a lot of Timberborn. I think maybe the RTS fan of me that, but it's not a war game at all. It's you play. I had the game Beavers in a post-apocalyptic world with a very limited amount of water, and you have to arrange the map around them. So it's a city builder when you have to manage water and shortage of water, but with water freezing and stuff like that, you can make a dam to stop the water and manage it the best way possible.
There's I don't like many RTSs because I get bored or I suck at them, but there's one that I come back to every now and then called Urbeck. It's an indie city building game that's an RTS. It's all voxel style. You know what voxels are, right?
Yeah, well, the game were made in block.
Yeah, like 3D, like it's pixels, but it's 3D. And like you have to like manage like your resources and stuff like that. I think it's pretty cool, but like it's simple enough where I can manage it. But stuff like City Skyline is just too complicated for me, and I just don't have any fun worrying about all the resources that go into that.
I did some SimCity back in the day. I don't want to start City Skyline.
Yeah.
If I may, without diving into the subject, RTS is a genre that did. There was this phase when we were only talking about RTS for the competitive aspect, and there was another exaggeration, oversaturation of mention of APM, action per minute, that made this genre look like, okay, you filthy casual, you are not made for RTS. That's wrong. I will not dive into the subject, but yes, you can play casually to RTS and play into the online mode and at least win half of the matches in the lower rank. So it's a genre you can learn. It's not as complex as it looks like, and the people in front of you, if they are not competitive players, they will do as much mistake as you do. You can learn them. We need more players to RTS genre.
Yeah.
But that's an entire subject on the side.
I've been thinking of getting Manor Lords. That one looks pretty fun.
Yeah, I won't have time for this one, but I do know the one you're talking about.
Okay. So we're gonna move on now to some more personal questions, right? Stuff we're gonna get a little deep. You ready for it? Right.
Okay.
Who or what has had the biggest influence or impact on your life?
Well, if it's not like the artist I did mention you earlier, obviously that's gonna be my parent. Once again, not someone that take a lot of time outside, but in terms of like how my life evolved, there is rather clear point where it did evolve. I did as long as I can remember, I was bad at school while having parents that told me, oh, you're smart, so you should be doing better at school and stuff like that. So I felt like I was more of the smart kind compared to the other kids in school, and yet was insanely bad at school, mainly because I was not writing down stuff because my mind was too volatile and I was not able to focus long enough in class to write down my own stuff. So that's the main reason why I was behind everyone. I have always had a huge issue into following, as I said, protocols, stuff like that. I'm truly made to be doing stuff my own way and was not fit for that. So but just imagine that all the way up to when I was 18, and even after that, I was doing school with parents pushing you in the back, so it's gonna work. You have the mind to do that, so you have no excuse to be that bad at school. You must continue to do that. And I was looking at myself just making maximum effort to have the bare minimum of score to progress into the multiple class. So I had a very, very bad view about myself, being someone very irresponsible, unable to do anything by myself. I had at this point no passion, which is more the fact of a side of video game basically that which is not a real job. It can become over time, but you get the idea. So these things of like I have no talent, I'm unable to do anything, and I just need like to be doing so much effort to be behind everyone else. So I was in this mentality also that in life you cannot do anything if you have like your degree. In France we say the baccalaureate, so it's the general degree you have whenever you reach 18, and then after that you can continue school, which in France is not that costly to not the subject. So I did that. Then I did a first post-degree years in informatics school. I did fail. Then I tried in a more general stuff, but still science-based one. Then I failed. And I retried this one. Then I failed again. And at the end of that, after like all the effort and stuff like that, and just realizing that I was hating everything about it, but I was still doing that just because of no idea, no self-direction, stuff like that. I had that moment with my mother where she was like, you can have just a small job and not being not having your job define yourself in life. Can't sound dumb, especially today, but that was a groundbreaking moment for me. To be like, for me, like just honestly, life is just suffering, and at this point, life was just suffering with a video game being the only things that can pull me out of that, even for a while. And at some point, I had to go back to slavery job. Okay, to me, just I'm being like, okay, so life's gonna be school, and then more school, and then more school after that, and then whatever job I'm gonna have is gonna be school but harder. And at this point, I was like, no, it can be an easy job that you don't have to care about, that will not pay you much, but if all you care about is being happy on your free time. And that was groundbreaking for me for a moment to be like, yeah, I might see a way I could be doing life and being happy. And after that, I started looking for a job and stuff like that with very low expectations for the kind of job I could do that. And especially once in the job, I have motivation to stay in the job. And that did not help me to keep any job. I was getting, because like after doing the entire school and knowing I was not putting any effort in school, I started a job, and for the first time in my life, I was motivated to do a job, even something that I had no passion to do, but because I wanted to keep the job to find like my own house and stuff like that. And each time I was fired and being described as the worst possible employee that they ever seen their entire life, which this time was very weird to me. Because I was like, no, I was working. I was never late at work, never asking how it would, when it going to end, never refusing any task I was asked. I was putting as much effort I was doing into that, and then I was treated like I was like the shittiest employee in the world. I over time learned that my asocial aspect, manner of talking, of moving and stuff like that, is very repulsive to most people. Like there is people that know me for a long time that can get over that and actually think I'm not gonna insert sentence just because I hate to throw a compliment about myself and but anyway, but basically the thing is that with people that don't know me, and well, when you have a +1 at job, those people, like, yeah, they do not care about that. They just get repulsed by natural human behavior of, that one guy that don't look you in the eye, but look downward diagonally towards you.
Yeah.
That don't have the good mannerism, that stuff like that. And overall, that just when this doesn't work with those people, they only see you in bad manners. So it's not them being, they are not being rude with you and stuff like that. They just don't feel anything with you, and they tend to put every flaw in the world on your face, so they can justify why they are hating you without understanding it. So that was annoying. I did have a job in multiple things, but most of the time this same issue was coming all the time. That every time the guy above me just hated me because of that, and reason he could not understand. And then I had the other revelation that I mentioned earlier with Grey of PTA, and that allowed me to have a job where I don't have anyone judging my work. Well, no, I mean judging me working.
I mean, you have
My
millions
work,
of people
obviously,
judging your work
on
now,
intense
but
stuff
they
like
can't they can't affect your hiring anymore. They can't affect if you're fired or not. Yeah.
Well, at least today I feel that in measure of happiness I'm at the absolute maximum I ever was in my life. My childhood was, even if I was in a family with a lot of money and stuff like that, that's already a chance, but like, yeah, daily life at school was slavery feeling to me. I was not doing anything. I had no friend. I was unfit for school. Everyone was, and also like unfit for school while having a parent being like, hey, you can understand that, you're smart, okay, so you have no excuse for being this bad. Simple enough. Like I was not you get the thing. So now that I'm alone, and just imagine that today, because I have a place and to that, and my parent was very afraid of what I was going to do next, seeing that I managed to, even if I never told them clearly what I was saying, just very vague about what I was doing. Well, I know that I'm not doing drugs or anything stuff like that. But aside of that, being at a place like that, I have a very relaxed and friendly, well, I mean, just a good vibe with them today. So on every point today, I'm at the best possible happiness level I ever had in my life.
I'm happy for
and
you.
This is why, with AI coming in and being a possible thing that may kick me out of my place, that's the thing that terrified me the most today.
Here's the way I see it, okay? Here's the way I see it. You mentioned the ramen stuff earlier, right? There's cup of noodle, and there's real ramen. AI is the cup of noodle. It's cheap. You can get it anywhere. You can get any flavor you want. But no one wants it. People want the good shit. That's what people actually pay good money for. AI is not going to remove artists' job. That's what I think.
I had a lot of time thinking about that. The thing is that you can clearly taste the difference between handmade and industrial and stuff like that. AI art has these things when more the time passes, the more it managed to tricks you into not seeing the difference. You still see the difference today when you are knowledgeable of that. So the result of I don't know. I truly think it will not simply like replace all artists and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just that it's going, as I said, it's going to be middle ground, and not saturate. Knowing always is the thing you are most afraid of.
It's going to saturate.
Yeah, it's mostly.
Just because
there's an issue.
Just because there's all this cheap ramen out there, there's probably like millions of times more cheap ramen than there is good ramen.
Well,
from like actual places.
If you want to know the main things that help me with accepting that AI will not destroy every artist's work, thinking about that, and have also been at some point passionate in history, stuff like that, and mostly pattern in history, I realized, hey, internet arrival, generalization of internet, should have been the death sentence of artists, because of art being, you can copy past art, remove any kind of trace of where you find it, use Photoshop to modify it and stuff like that, copy paste it everywhere. So no one gonna pay for art, stuff like that. You can have access to everything for free. Yet this did not kill artists, and even made them stronger overall. Like, you never had as much artists as in the internet faces. I think AI cannot cause more damage. It cannot be a bigger threat to artists than internet should have been.
Yeah, no, I agree. What is a memory from the past that you still think about today?
Many of them.
But what comes to mind?
I did mention that one moment where my mother told me that, hey, you don't have to dedicate your entire life to your job, and you can live for yourself. Aside of that, I always had this feeling that I had like such a normal life, such a plain life-based life all the way up until I became an artist and stuff like that. And even that was rather natural and smooth going. No particular memory marks me out of that. Like, I played my entire life safe in a way. No, I cannot find that with a large question like that. If you mentioned all the stuff, maybe I will have specific memory stuff, but overall, like, too hard for me to point out a specific moment like that with just a general question.
Okay. What was the biggest risk you've ever taken, and what happened?
Going into this life, I would say, just being like, yeah, I'm gonna go on my own. If you want to know, like, at first, I was stuck in this circle of, searching a job, stuff like that. What allowed me to, like, kick off this career and do that? At this point, like, we are in 2021, so I already was doing stuff and gaining a few euro money with my work, starting to feel like it could be a job, but not making enough money by itself. So it was not sure, and at this point it was, oh no, you cannot live out of art on the internet. That's way too risky. So you can kind of stuff. I was doing a job of. I was in a warehouse when there was just a lot of. It was a soup warehouse, moving and unloading and loading trucks every day. The job was annoying. That was the first job that I was able to hold for a longer time because it was a job that had way too much trouble finding someone. So having someone like me who was able to drive the forklift, that was too valuable to be replaced. But I had that one friend that I did found at first on a tabletop role-playing club. I just joined them randomly because I did discover a game called Werewolf the Apocalypse, needed a player to play with them, stuff like that. I did had like one person in this club that became a true friend, very important one, I mean. A lot of session I did because I had a car and they don't have any driving license. I was able to help them with their kit and stuff like that. The guy was way more older than me, well, by 10 to 15 years, stuff like that. But one thing he did for me, that whenever I was in this era and stuff like that, we were already friends for a few years. I already was drawing for a few years, and the guy was he saw that I was fully stuck in my current situation, unable to progress and stuff like that. And so he did something very simple, but that's, I think, so many of other people like me need at some point. He's just being like, hey, what if... Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Another thing that was blocking me a lot, and I did realize that there was a lot more impact. My parents are divorced, and they had these things where living in the same city, close to my school and stuff like that. I was hopping from one house to the other one every week for my entire childhood. The kind of stuff that does impact your life, but you don't realize it at first because it's just normal for me at this point. He was seeing how, well, every week and stuff like that was taking some time with me. There were some activities that I could only do in one house and not in the other one. I had these things that was making my mind change every week because of that I was not viewing myself.
Bless you.
Sorry.
We'll cut it out.
Okay. So yeah, I was moving from one house to the other one, and the guy was like, "Hey, what if?" Because also, yeah, being diverse parents, stuff like that. Of course, they have many things to go against each other, and I never wanted to choose one parent over the other one, so I could not say, "Okay, now I'm gonna live into your house" and stuff like that. It cannot not start the fire, you know. With like, oh yeah, you prefer that parent over the other one. I don't want to choose. So what he did is like, come in my apartment and we live in collocation together until you find a better place. And that started everything else, because living with him allowed me to learn very basic stuff that you need to learn whenever you want to start to live in an apartment. I learned how to cook with him, how to clean up my own, not clean up, but like wash up my own clothes, like that. So many stuff where you never, like, you need to know, but you never had a true moment in life when you learned it, aside of, when you have the opportunity. So I had all the basic the basic skill for living alone like that. It allowed me to break from the circle and being out of the daddy and mommy house. It gave me the time to start my own stuff. With them, I was able to tell them, hey, I want to work in that kind of stuff. They were very open about that. I want to try that because, he was paying for most of the stuff. I was paying just for part of the grocery and stuff like that. So I had all the monetary freedom to try that on the side. It worked. So with that, then I had my father, who had an apartment that I could rent. So he's the guy who owned it, and currently I'm in this apartment right now. So I have my own apartment on my own that I was only able to, if everything started getting in motion and I was able to leave my parent house, was thanks to this friend that allowed me to be for 6 months, has a step outside of my parents' home. And once you're out of that, everything gets in motion and started. So that's another very important part of my life.
What motivates you to keep pushing through life?
Truly, being happy. That's, if anything, I could say that I have project maybe of, on my entire life, I want to at least make one indie game, I would say. That's a long-term project, but overall, I tend to, whether AI has one of them, but on many other subjects, take too much time thinking about the future, overthinking pleasure, stuff like that, what it means and stuff like that. At the end of the day, what keeps me on track, and it is just being happy by itself is the end goal for me. Just enjoying playing video game, more recently going to furry convention and stuff like that. And doing my art, by the way, it's also a pleasure on many points. I'm literally making a job out of something that I like. And on many things, you can just focusing on what makes you happy is the best way to stop the voices in your head, explaining you the many things that gonna end your life in horrible situation, maybe possibly one day. Or
Yeah, no, I like to do things instead of, because I have an issue where I focus on doomsday scenarios and kind of spiral down that. So it's nice that I now have things I could do instead of thinking that. People I can talk to.
Worst thing is I think the worst scenario is the one where humanity actually managed to get rid of all their issue. I was about to spoil season 2 of Arcane. I'm not gonna do that, but
yeah, please don't. I don't want people lynching me.
Okay, which one is the other one? No, the one I'm gonna spoil Final Fantasy XIV. It's even worse doing that.
Okay.
No, but basically, without doing that, the worst things that can happen to humanity is actually getting rid of all those problems. After the need of food, water, heat that humans have, one need we need to have and we never take into consideration is the need to solve problem. The more humanity progresses, the more we manage to get to manage our basic needs, the more we find dumb problems. So we create dumb problems, so we have problem to fix. That's, I think, a natural need of humanity.
I think humans create problems and then
AI
also
is bad on many issues.
If we got to a
that's the
state
issue with AI. AI gonna solve a lot of issue and gonna ask us to find even dumber problem.
Well, let's say
for that.
Let's say we get to a situation where every problem is solved. It's gonna last 2 seconds. Somebody's gonna come up with some invention because they have the time to do it now, and then it's gonna cause other problems. No,
the worse than that is that if we succeed on that, that's the end of humanity. It's gonna be humanity staying on the perfection.
I don't think it will.
Absolute line, not moving, not having any needs, not having anything. Matrix, just everyone in a cube that's gonna take care of all their problem and nothing moving, nothing changing, as if we were not living.
I don't think it'll ever reach that point though, because there's people that just won't ever be happy, and that's a problem. Like if someone else is happy, then someone else will be not happy that they're happy. There's people out there like that.
One thing philosophy I have that I learned very early, maybe too early, because of anime called Fullmetal Alchemist. My base mantra in life is that for everything you gain, you lose something, and more importantly, and that people never think about that. For everything you lose, you gain something, but it's up to you to figure out what. In your own life, I think every human in their own way gonna experience the exact same amount of pleasure and pain in different kind of way. Everything that helps you, make you dependent about that. Everything you lose, you gain, well, freedom out of that. Like you not just you get free of the dependence out of that. That's one of the way it materialized. That's why you focus on the good. Most of the time, the issue is not what you need in life is not running after happiness, is understanding what happiness you already have. And try to not to focus too much on the negative.
Yeah, no, I used to be a very negative person, and I always was just annoying and complaining about stuff, and I realized, like, if I choose what I feel about things. I choose when I feel offense to things. I choose when I am angry about things. And I realize, like, I'd rather just not feel those things, so I choose not to. I choose to be happy and look at the positive side.
No matter at which point you are in your life, there are going to be negative stuff. There's going to be bad stuff happening. You can look at that. The same way negativity gonna always be there, everything that can make you happy, any good stuff, always there. There is always good stuff happening to you. So it's always a matter of which one you want to see.
This is the last question for the personal questions. What is a moment or experience that changed your perspective on something?
Most of them, I think, even the most important one, it's gonna be very gradual, very over time, very like small experience over small experience. I would say maybe finishing Final Fantasy XIV was not the biggest one, but one of them that did happen like all at once. This kind of game that gives you realization and stuff like that. I think I can explain the thing without explaining Final Fantasy XIV itself. This focus on like, you know, we were talking about perfection, stuff like that, and how it's actually a poison. This game talk about that a lot. Make you think, like, allow you to see problem in life, allow you to make you face a societal problem and allow you to fix it, but make you realize that causes a problem. So you fix that and you realize it causes a problem. So you go one tier higher, like you go from society to godhood to many stuff like that, and you try to always see the source of the problem and try to fix the problem of that and all that, just to realize that at the end of the day you will not find any answer by trying to fix everything. Any society that aim for perfection, that try to see how it can be perfect over an infinite amount of time, stuff like that, there's no answer into that. So it can make you feel that if there is no answer, no greater goal, no way to be infinitely sure that your future going to be infinitely safe, stuff like that, then there is no point in life and all that. The message at the end of the day is there is a goal, there is a point into that, and it's the fact of moving toward this goal. The goal itself, you have to accept that even if you will never reach it, walking towards it is the point of being alive. Just walking toward that. Walking through the first suffering for a goal that you will never reach. But it's this motion that is what makes you alive. I would not even say that is what you want to be alive. No, it's you are alive because you are moving toward that, even if you don't realize it, even if you don't accept it.
Well, that wraps up the regular questions, and as you know, viewers of the Kreachur Feature podcast, our guests get to bring up their own question or topic at the end. So, what would you like to bring up today, or ask?
What was not brought up already? We talked about video game, about very deep life stuff and stuff like that. We talked about AI. What did we not brought up?
You could ask me a question. You could bring up your own question for both of us. You could bring up a specific topic about anything that you just want to talk about. It's your choice.
How do you got into the furry fandom? And maybe I will explain me too.
Oh, okay. This is a story. As embarrassing
Same
as
for
it
me.
is. Okay, so Game Theory, you know the channel Game Theory. I'm gonna be as vague as possible with this. They made a video back in 2012, and it awakened something in me. It wasn't the furry stuff though, but the topic that it
Not furry.
awakened in me has a lot of furries that are also interested in it. And so eventually I meandered my way over to DeviantArt, and this was back in like 2012 or so, 2013, 2012 is when I got onto
May I
DeviantArt.
ask if it is FNAF related?
It is not FNAF related. I don't think FNAF was out in 2012.
Because talking about game theory, that's the main one that comes to
No,
mind. Okay, continue.
no. This is for a different game, but I'm not gonna get specific because then everyone will know. So
Okay, no problem.
So that got me into DeviantArt, and DeviantArt is like 80% furries. And so, actually, one of the early people that I was a big fan of is someone you actually made an animation for a long time ago. Do you remember? He's a guy that owns a few old famous OCs on DeviantArt. His name's Kleiny. He owned.
Well, that's a guy that made my first commission as well.
Yeah. So I remember that's one of the animations that you made that I
This
remember.
guy is a career starter.
He-
Creator.
He's an OG. He's like really. I don't think he's even active anymore. He still gets like gift art.
No, not really.
though.
Yeah.
He still gets gift art. That's the crazy thing. But he's not there to say thank you. He's not even doing anything with his stuff anymore. But I remember like his OCs were some of the characters that I liked a lot, and then eventually like over the years I got Discord, I think like in 2017, and I met some more people. But then like for 3 years I was like didn't have internet access because of a situation I was in. I was in a boarding school that had no internet. So I only was able to like catch up with furry stuff when I was at home and like look at new art and stuff like that. And I'd save it to my phone so I could look at it when I'm like in the car driving back from the airport right before I go to the boarding school. And then it'd all be in my head. I'd be able to think about it photographically. And then like I got out in 2020, and then I've just been within the furry fandom since. It's been fun. I met cool people. I met bad people, but it's been a good ride still. And I actually
I'm gonna try to not be too. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
I got my first OC 2024 actually in April,
Oh.
and it's this guy.
Yeah. Always take a lot of time to define that. Same for me. Well, I'm gonna get into detail afterward. For me, I think multiple based stone, beginning stone. So I think in the background, as I said, always had issue identifying with human emotion and stuff like that. So I always try to find that in something else. Back in very early school, stuff like that. I liked Transformers back in the day. No, it doesn't have much to do with that, and mostly because I was fan of ability to transform, and I realized over time that what I liked was the ability to have hidden power, hidden form, stuff like that. I began eventually a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z. That's the entire base of the show, of like having not yet my final form, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of time before it was, I don't know which one after came at first, but it was very close. Got into World of Warcraft and Skyrim. In Skyrim, I did find out in the middle of my game about the Companion Guild and Werewolf. So at first it was not being furry, stuff like that, wasn't caring, but I had a power, hidden power transformation. So that was the thing I was into. And on the other side, I got into World of Warcraft and I discovered the Worgen race that I first liked because their mount was themselves. And then you create a character, you begin the game and you're like, wait, I'm a human? What the heck I did? And then, oh, you get the ability to transform and saying, oh, that's so cool and stuff like that. Combine that with the fact that these races had a basic campaign that was way better than any other races, stuff like that. So between Skyrim and that, I was like, oh, definitely I have. Now I do love werewolf and stuff like that.
Werewolves are cool.
And then you realize that game you have is Twilight Princess, you have Sonic
It started snowballing.
you realize that werewolves are very underused in video games, stuff like that. That's
you know what?
But anytime I did found...
There's a character that you might like. Do you know the game Hi-Fi Rush?
Yes, okay, and I know which one the boss...
Rockford, you know exactly.
Yeah. Not really, because today Transformers it's something that I really put aside. So, basically, at first it's only werewolf.
Uh-huh.
At some point it evolved into Digimon. With one of the one I loved because I discovered that with a DS game that had for starter a few ones, and including Gahomon. So Gahomon is a blue dog with a punching glove and all these different transformations that eventually he become a knight. Very stylish. I love that. That was on the side, and at some point, so as I said, I'm someone who loves action and stuff like that, and so much so that I always watched movie and series my entire time, only focusing on the action and never about the other thing. At some point, being recently passionate into werewolves and stuff like that, and stumbled on a movie. I have the name French, so normally in English and translate into The Wolf Children by Mamoru Hosoda. I think it was a link between, because the guy who made that first made a Digimon movie, etc., etc. At some point he made that, and this movie just slapped me in the face so hard on the emotional level. This thing is absolutely not about any kind of action. It's no action in this movie at all, or almost nothing, because the full focus is family thing. And this movie changed so much about my appreciation of story and life and stuff like that, and also it made me suddenly like I loved werewolf for the emotional story it could bring and stuff like that. So it made me even deeper into stuff like that. As I said, in the meantime, I discovered a role-playing game that's called Werewolf the Apocalypse. So much else to say about this game, not in this show. I'm not already too much out of focus. But it made me even more into that, stuff like that. After that, I start my animation that at first are only focused on the not safe forward aspect for something very specific. And over time, made me realize that, I liked a werewolf, but I wanted, and stuff like that, but I wanted to keep a difference, not safe for work on the side, werewolf on the other side, and not mix them together. At some point I did. I got into furry like that. I just been like, the thing is that preventing myself from doing that in the not safe for work aspect was like, that's so dumb. I make myself do stuff that I like less into that just because there should be like some kind of honor into what I think in my head and stuff like that. No, that's so dumb. I was already aware about furries at this point. Was trying to differentiate myself, but very vaguely, and that I didn't had at no point hate for furries like many furries had, became first furriator and then eventually become furries. For me it was not, so it was very easy to after that accept that. But at first it was a lot of werewolf, a lot of passion for action and transformation, stuff like that. Okay. And there you go. Furry.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it was awesome meeting you and talking to you. I really enjoyed our time together. And thank you everyone who was watching. I hope you guys have a good evening, a good day, or good whatever. Bye.
Bye.